on the line here. And Peter is launching his book, Honest to Greatness, this week. I know that's crummy, but my team is standing by. Yeah, mine is going to be on its way. But my team is standing by. We're going to be dropping the link to your book page in the comments below. And I had the pleasure of meeting Peter a few months ago, actually through Mike Michalowicz, when we were doing his Fix This Next book launch. And what a pleasure it's been to know you, Peter. You were like instantly captivated me from our first call. I found you to just be really interesting, full of knowledge and wisdom, and you're kind of funny too.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You have your moments.
I'm going to take you everywhere to introduce me. You can do it exactly like that. It's perfect.
So you're also an Inc. 5000 serial entrepreneur, which is amazing. And now you're going around helping leaders cultivate more honesty in their corporation. And you're saying that if you cultivate more honesty inside of a corporation, it's going to help you with your marketing, with your sales. It'll help you become a better leader. It'll help you attract and retain better employees that are coming in, better talent. Like, that's amazing.
It is the root cause. And I know this because I bumbled around working from clients from startups to the Fortune 500 and even Warren Buffett himself. And I will tell you that I was not prepared for the amount of dishonesty out there in the business world. And I don't mean executives, outright lying to people for their own benefit. I mean just lying to themselves, about what's going on in the world and how consumer trends are shifting and how other fellow executives are thinking, or how customers are really feeling, or with their own biases and self-limiting beliefs. I mean, it has just been shocking. And, I've gotten to talk to a couple other people who are like, oh, I want to write a book. What should I write about? And I was like, well, write about what pisses you off. Because quite frankly, the dishonesty out there pissed me off. And I was like, I can't, GEM, my platform company, is a marketing agency. And we were coming in too late, Amber. At that point, the executives already messed up all of the things strategically that they needed to. So, that's why I ended up writing the book, going to the root cause analysis.
Oh my God, I love that. Write about what pisses you off, because I think a lot of us play it safe, right? In business, we play it safe, which really plays right back into your thesis here, that maybe we have the blinders on. Maybe we're not asking the harder questions. So we're going to have an amazing conversation today in the next 30 minutes. I'm going to pick you apart a little bit and dig into what this means and what we can do as a result of it. For those of you who are tuning in, please tag a couple of your friends. We want to get the awareness out right now about Peter's book, Honest to Greatness, because it's important. And if you listening have ever had a goal and something mattered to you and you hoped that other people would tag and share and do all the things, then let's do that today for Peter. Let's celebrate his book launch. Let's just be in this together and elevate, business moving forward in a really tricky time. So what is the conversation that you're having? Okay, so use me. I'm a business owner and I'm interested. I'm intrigued in this concept of bringing more honesty. Where do I start? What's something tangible that I can even do now in my organization this week to start to shift the conversation the way things are happening?
Great question. Let me give you the two questions that I wish literally every member of society would begin to ask themselves, because if they did, we'd have a lot better of a culture. And this is particularly pertinent for business owners, because what I've found, Amber, is that 99% of business problems for entrepreneurs are personal problems in disguise.
100%.
I have a whole coaching practice around this, right? And, I run a monthly forum group, literally the most powerful peer group for entrepreneurs on the planet. Come together, 100% confidentiality, and we get really honest and vulnerable about what's actually going on in our business lives, personal lives, and family lives. And I cannot tell you how many times someone comes in with a business issue, and once you trace it back, it's really a confidence issue, a childhood trauma issue, family issue, whatever, right? It's never about the business.
I've observed that in my own business just this summer. And I was like, what? And once you hit that awareness of it, then it starts popping up everywhere, which is great. I kind of feel like I've made it now because I've exposed it, a lot of it.
Exactly. So let me tell you the two questions that'll help you get to that a lot faster, which is this. Is that true? And how do I know? You can imagine if you're looking at a headline on the news, right? Or your great Aunt Millie's Facebook post, or you have a thought in your head, just stop and ask yourself, wait a second, is that true? And how do I know? Because if you don't know it's true and you can't articulate why it's true, then how the hell do you know if it's true or not? You know? And so just having that pause instead of reacting emotionally, right, getting stuck in our reptilian brains can have such a massive impact on getting, as you noted, the awareness. Why is that so important? Because dishonesty is a habit, right? And it's an addiction, right? We're addicted to our own crappy thoughts and self-limiting beliefs and processes in our brain. And what's the first step to breaking an addiction? Admitting you have a problem, becoming aware of it. That's why this is so powerful for entrepreneurs, yes, but also for CEOs, middle managers, frontline employees. I have a chapter on each of those groups in this book because it works universally. Guess what? They taught us that in preschool, so we shouldn't be surprised. And yet here I am writing a book about it in 2020. It's shocking even to me.
Gosh, the timing of this is remarkable. How long have you been working on this book?
4 long, arduous, and painful years.
I love it when new authors come, they're like, I want to write a book. And, they just have this idea of what it's going to be like. And it's just so different than that.
Well, that was me. I was like, that's a great, yeah, I want to do that. Oh my God. It's been really, really, really hard. One of the most challenging things I've ever done. And I was a figure skater, like a very serious Olympic hopeful figure skater doing like triple Lutzes and shit. This was really hard.
Wow. Well, yeah, if you're going to make it a great book, right? Yeah. I mean, you can write a book in a weekend. It's not great. It's not going to stand the test of time. You are making waves in industries in the world with this book. It's going to be awesome.
I mean, in my defense, I did write a great book. It took me a year and I wrote an incredible book and I turned it into the publisher. And 2 weeks later, they wrote me back and they were like, Peter, this is awesome. It's epic. I just need you to rewrite chapters 1 through 13. There are only 14 chapters in the whole damn book. Right. So it's like, I was sitting there, like I just had so much time and energy. And in this, there's probably 17% of that original draft in here. And thank goodness, because now when I think back on that draft, it was absolute garbage. I'm so grateful that they told me like, good job, Peter, just maybe clean this up, because I would have been so embarrassing to release that. But what a testament to self-limiting blinders you said earlier, right?
No kidding. Yeah. And yes, that, and it's a really interesting time to be launching the book because we are buying into so many things that we really don't know what we're buying into. It's happening so fast. Sure. Ever since COVID, people are like, this is the way it is. This is the truth. And other people are like, no, it's not. Where did you get that information? Facebook? Well, okay. And it feels like it's only getting worse. Have you observed that? Do you feel like technology and social media is just contributing to your thesis that there's this lack of honesty happening everywhere?
Yeah, we made this point a couple of times. I've been on some radio and television interviews that yes, we're in a pandemic of COVID-19, but before that, and what's exacerbating this problem is we live in a pandemic of dishonesty and have been living in that pandemic for a long time. And you can see that it's just eroded trust. And I'm talking about public sector, private sector. We have competing interests. We have politicians running in 5 different directions. It's a mess. And unfortunately, the pallbearers of truth, and I use that specifically, because it is ending in its grave, I feel like, that was probably the news media, right? And even they have succumbed to clicks and eyeballs and all these other conflicts of interest that unfortunately make fear mongering a more viable business model than actually just, getting to the data behind it. The reason that I'm so proud of this, Amber, and after 4 years of not being, I think I'm getting to the point where I'm proud of it, I think, depending on the day you ask me, is that dishonesty is not sustainable. Like all of these account scandals and college admissions scandals and Jeffrey Epstein and Black Lives Matter, like all the craziness, it's not sustainable, right? We either have to get honest with each other and honest about what's going on in society and honest about how we need to change both as a group and individuals, or I don't know where this ends, but it's a little bit frightening to be a young person, right now in the world, sitting back thinking like, well, where are the people who are just like, hey, why don't we all like sit down and have a conversation about this, get to the facts, like put the emotions aside, let's, facts first. And then, all right, how do we feel about it? Like, where's the reason? We need to return to rationality here.
You are my people. Okay. Anybody who's watching, if you have questions for Peter, please drop them in the comments below. I'm looking over here because my team is sending me questions as they come in. So please get involved in the conversation here. Peter, I want to take you back to your childhood for a minute.
Oh gosh.
Were
Should I get the
you
rosé, or what should I do here?
were you always honest? Like, where did this come from? Or were you like horribly dishonest and then you had to learn a hard lesson and now this is like a mission? Like, where does honesty play into your childhood and upbringing?
Yeah, I'm a little like, I think like if people who I went to high school with, like if they find out I've written a book about honesty, like they will laugh. I was voted like most likely to continue being a complete jerk in high school in my young 20s. Like for me to be a torch bearer for honesty, transparency, vulnerability, like that should be a joke to people who knew me.
Wow.
And the first time I really had to get honest was 18. At 17, Amber, I knew two things to be true. The first was I was going to the Olympics as a figure skater. I was a very serious, highly trained figure skater.
Gosh.
All 5'7" of me. That was my excuse. And the other thing I knew for sure that I was going to achieve at 17 was I was going to go to Harvard. Several of my family members went to Harvard. I grew up outside of Boston. That was it, right? That was the path. At 18, it was clear I was not good enough to get anywhere near the Olympics as a figure skater. I just didn't have what I needed. I couldn't keep my nerves together. Also, I applied to Harvard. Harvard sent me a very nice letter back saying, thank you, but no, thank you. Please don't call us.
Oh
We'll call
my
you.
gosh.
And it was devastating, right? I mean, I was on this
Yeah.
train and now
Oh
all of a
my
sudden I'm on this train over here, right? So it was a devastating, devastating time. And the good news is those two failures put big chips on my shoulder, right? That fueled the growth of what ended up being a multi-million-dollar multinational Inc. 5000 marketing agency, right? Which was wonderful, until disaster struck in my life, which is that I turned 30. Has this happened to you? I don't know how people get through this. Like it was just like horrible, right? And I don't know
what
why.
at 30?
My life looked fine. I'd grown $1 million company, just gotten married. We moved into a house. We were flipping. Like everything was cool. But for some reason, I had realized I had to get brutally honest with myself, Amber, that I had let those two big failures knock me down
Hmm.
to a second or third scenario, right? Like, well, obviously I wasn't going to be the first best Peter there could be. So I guess I'm just always going to be number 2 or number 3 in my life. Right?
Oh my
Powerful.
gosh.
So that's when I turned on the jets. I achieved more in the 18 months after I turned 30 than I had in the 10 years prior. And one of those things was I am an author. It's who I am. It's in my DNA. Like I am an author. And I had to get honest, like, who am I, right? What do I even want? This was one of those things. And, thus it sounded more fun. Like, yeah, I'm going to be an author. Now it's like, oh my gosh, what
Oh
was I
yeah.
thinking? But, no regrets. I'm so happy I did it because it was always going to happen, right? I knew I wanted to get an MBA, right? So I went back to Columbia University in New York, got an MBA, right? There was all kinds of things. TEDx speaker,
Mhm.
went and did a TED Talks. I just had to get really honest with myself. Now, what was ironic is I'd gotten very good at helping my clients, at the agency or coaching clients, get honest with themselves. Here I was, a lying sack of poop, right? And couldn't be honest with myself. So yeah, trust me, it's all good though. All life lessons.
It is so brutal when I loved what you said. I was 30, everything was good, right? And then you have that awareness that you've had the blinders on. That was at least the way that I described it. Honestly, things are great in my life. I never imagined that they could be this good. And even last month, I had some awakenings from my childhood and dynamics that I was playing out, and I didn't even realize it. And I was just so broken open in a good way. And now I've just been on fire ever since then because I feel free, is
It's
what the
clarity.
feeling is. It's clarity, it's freedom. It's so energizing. I feel like I'm really being honest in a whole different level with myself and other people. And it's not that I was like intentionally dishonest before. I didn't know. I didn't
It's
know what
not
I didn't
intentional.
know.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so what does this look like in an organization? How does a leader, okay, so I've asked the two questions, and now how am I rolling this out into my organization? How does this impact my marketing and my sales and the other areas of my business?
Yeah. Let me tell you a couple of great stories, and there are so many in the book, of folks from Quicken Loans and Domino's Pizza and the largest hedge fund in the world, and a Girl Scout who sold. Let's start with the Girl Scout, right?
Yeah.
Charlotte McCourt, one of the first chapters in part 2 of my book. Girl Scout, right? She's like 11 years old at the time, wants to sell cookies. Fine. being the little capitalist that she is, says to her dad, do we know anybody rich? Buy some cookies? Said, yeah, my friend's a venture capitalist. Call him. So she doesn't say like, Dad, introduce me. Sends him an email with an extremely honest rundown of every Girl Scout cookie, along with like a rating and a description, because she says at the top of the letter, sometimes the Girl Scouts of America can use false advertising. And some of these cookies, quite frankly, suck. So I don't want you to buy those ones, right? So the guy's a venture capitalist. So he reads this thing and he goes, well, if the entrepreneurs I funded had this kind of approach, right, actually caring about the customers, actually being honest as they're selling, I'd probably be a lot wealthier and do a lot better, right? So she doesn't just sell, 100 boxes of Girl Scout cookies. Because of the way that letter was shared, she sold 30,000 boxes of Girl Scout cookies. It crashed her website, right?
Gosh.
All by, mind you, telling other people, don't buy these, they suck. Now, it turns out that honesty works at a small scale and a big scale. Domino's Pizza used that exact same framework back in 2008 and 9 when they realized that all their customers were saying, hey guys, your pizza's not that good. In fact, Domino's was putting its pizza in competitors' boxes and people were saying, oh, actually, this one's better. I like that one. Same pizza, right? So that doesn't just tell you the pizza's bad.
Wow, I didn't know
they had
that.
a brand problem.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So, they could have just redid their crust and their sauce and pushed it out in an ad campaign, but they didn't. The incoming CEO, J. Patrick Doyle, went on national television and said, well, folks, our pizza apparently is terrible and we're sorry and you deserve better and we're going to make it right. And they brought cameras into their kitchen. They brought cameras out to knock on people's doors. Hey, try the pizza. What do you think? Put all that on YouTube. And if you had recognized that and bought their stock while the CEO was on national TV telling everyone the product sucked, you would have had a 3,000% return over the next 10 years.
Wow.
All by using honesty. Let me give you another one. The Ritz-Carlton, right? The Ritz-Carlton comes out of nowhere, becomes the most luxurious, award-winning hotel chain around the world. How did they do it? Well, they realized one important thing, that the executive team has absolutely 100% zero control over the experiences of their customers. Now you ask, who does? Well, the doorman, the receptionists, the chefs, the maids, right? So instead of hiring people, they hired and trained leaders. They actually opened a leadership center. They said, we are not a hospitality company. We are a hospitality leadership company. In fact, because they recognize who is the leader and who has the power, they give each of their employees up to $2,000 to spend on a customer's experience. No prior approvals required. Now, what egotistical, typical executive who thinks they are all important is going to possibly sit back and get honest about who actually is responsible for the outcomes in their organization and do nothing but empower them to do it? These are all the ways in which honesty plays into how we do, from entrepreneurs up to Fortune 500 companies and beyond.
That was amazing. That was amazing. And I'm listening to you in the middle of this live stream experience. And I'm like, gosh, I thought that I was doing it right, but that just gave me some ideas. Like, yeah, I've got to tell my team about that right now.
Yeah.
Love it. Gosh, you're amazing. And it's been like that at every interaction that we've had. We've had many of them by now. And you're just so consistent and steady and great, Peter. It's awesome. It's really awesome. So, okay, what happens when honesty, is there ever a time when honesty doesn't work in an organization?
There sure is. One of the CEOs in my book makes a good point. It says, if you're flying in a plane and the pilots come over the intercom and they say, well, folks, we've never seen storm clouds like that before. So please put on your seatbelts. I'm not quite sure if we're going to get through this, and we're going to hope for the best.
Good luck.
Now, is that honest? Yeah, of course. But is it helpful? No. Honesty is only as good as the trust that it creates. So I have a framework for the book called the hourglass of honesty, right?
I was going to ask you that. I wrote that down.
Yeah. And this is going to help us operationalize this, right? How do we weaponize brutal strategic honesty is what I call it. So the first thing we need to do is get honest about the community, right? What's going on in the world around us? We live in a crazy time, right? We have big issues facing this world, like racial discrimination and gender bias, gender fluidity, right? Things we've never talked about or considered before. We can't put our heads in the sand about this stuff, right? It's going on, it's happening. We don't have to like it, but we need to accept that the community is changing, right? Be honest about that.
Gosh, thank you.
The second level is being honest with and about the others around us. Now, sometimes we do need to be honest with the others, right? I need to come to you and say, Amber, I'm sorry I made a pizza and the pizza sucked, right? And I owe you better, right? But other times we need to be honest about other people, about how they think, how they feel, how differently their conclusions might be from our own. This is where empathy comes into play. I have a great technique called feed forward, right? So feedback is you do something and I tell you, oh, Amber, I'm not sure I liked that. And this, that, right? You are the one in the spotlight. You're the one to blame. In feed forward, I say, all right, well, let's look at this together. All right, let's brainstorm a couple ways this could be better, right? Imagine if we did like option A, B, or C.
Yes.
What do you think would happen if we did each one of those?
Gosh, yes.
Ask the question, right? So now what's happened? Well, we're talking about a future state that's nobody's fault. So nobody can be offended by that. Now, I always want to pause here and make the point that by now, many people know, there are all kinds of studies showing that positive reinforcement does a lot better than negative feedback, right? I don't want anyone to be confused. The reason that result occurs is because of our delicate egos, right? It'd be a lot easier and faster if we could just tell people like, hey, that kind of sucks. Will you redo it for me and do this, this, and this? But we can't do that, right? That really violates a lot of our human emotional brain kind of approaches. And again, we need to get honest about that and about the others around us. And that helps us pivot people in a helpful way rather than offend them. By the way, we live in a divisive world because we're so busy reacting and defending and offending. And we need to be honest about other people. And finally, Amber, once people get through those two levels, if they can then be honest with and about themselves, right? With their own biases, self-limiting beliefs, limitations, ego, the folks who are able to come down all three levels, what happens at the core is they change. Honest Amber is very different than dishonest Amber. Honest Amber has different hopes, fears, wants, desires, right? You're essentially a different person, one admitting, ready to admit that there's something that needs to occur or change or pivot. And so what happens is if you can get through those three levels, you actually end up changing the others around you, whether that's your inner circle, your employees, your customers, your family.
Yep.
And that's how you come back out the other side of the hourglass and you're able to bend the community toward you and create rapid and incredible amounts of change in your life and in your organization.
Good grief. If you have not already ordered this book, you're crazy. Everybody, the link is in the comments. Please go buy this book. And I want to give you the opportunity to talk about what your goals are for the book, how we can support you, and anything else around the launch that we need to know about. But first, we have a question from Bo. What comes first, trust or vulnerability? Or is it just always cyclical and symmetrical? How do you get the cycle started with new people in your community?
Gosh, what a great question, because I get interesting reactions to this, one of which is like, should I just be honest all the time, right? Is that good? And we've talked about this, right? No, it's not always good. We need to be strategic about what we do.
Yeah.
A technique that I love that works every time that plays into what Bo's asking is not only being honest, but pointing to the honesty. So let's say I came to you, Amber, and I wanted to develop a deep relationship fast. I'd say, Amber, this is the first time we talked. So I hope you don't think I'm really weird or anything, but you seem like a really cool girl. And I want to share something kind of vulnerable from my past and be really honest with you. Is that cool? Or will you think I'm some sort of creep or something? And of course you're going to go oh no, Peter, of course, that's totally cool. Of course you can do that. Right. And what happens is once we point to the fact that we're going to be honest and we tell people, hey, we are trusting you with this thing, all the guards drop. Right. And all of a sudden we're two human beings who both have shit going on. We all do.
Yep.
And we've agreed to enter into that safe space, right? Where we can be vulnerable and develop that trust that Bo's asking about.
Yeah. I mean, this is everything that I talk about. How do you develop personal connection really quickly to scale your influence? So yeah, very much aligned there. Okay. So let's talk about the launch. What are some of your goals? What do you want? How can we help you meet those goals? Who can we introduce you to? Who else do you want to speak with? Just pour it on. My community is awesome.
I know. I appreciate that. Goal number one, not to drift hopelessly into debt over my life's work. That would be good.
Not funny, not funny. Yes.
Amber, like I said earlier, like I want people to understand that they're in 100% control. I was doing one of these interviews and one of the hosts said something like, we need to be able to recognize when something's our fault. And if we're going to be honest, it's always your fault. It's always my fault, right? It's always, we can only control ourselves, right? This is, by the way, talk about deep, like this revolutionized my marriage. One day I woke up and I was like, my wife deserves better. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that any conflict that arises, it's my fault. And once I did that, guess what? It actually was my fault. So all the problems disappeared. I was like, well, I'm just going to pretend, right, that it's all my okay. It's always all our fault. So if we can learn to get more honest with ourselves, that's step one. Because like I said earlier, otherwise we're this BSE version of ourselves working at a goal that we don't even want in the first place because we're not honest with ourselves about who we are and what we actually want. Now, I speak at conferences all the time, right? And whenever I speak at conferences for entrepreneurs, I bait them a little bit. And I'm like, design your ideal week. They're like, oh, Peter, gosh, I would love to work like 4 or 5 hours a day. That'd be great. Now I'm working like 8 to 10. I'm so tired. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. How come you don't want to work like 1 hour a day, 3 days a week? And they kind of blink at me and they're like, well, yeah, that'd be awesome, but that's not even possible, right? Well, is that true? And how do you know? I know plenty of entrepreneurs that work 1 hour a week, 3 days, and they make a lot of money.
Totally.
Because they're smart and strategic. So, so often we block ourselves from greatness and it's just a damn shame. It really is. So on the micro level, I really want people to get into the subject matter and make changes in their life because it makes me sad when they don't. And on the macro, the society we live in, it is an absolute mess out there. This pandemic was a mess. All of the divisiveness.
We're still going to be feeling it.
Yep. Yeah. And like all the emotional reactions people have and locked in their own psychology, it's a mess. And there is no other way out unless we are willing to put down our arms and be honest, right? With ourselves, with other people about what's going on. That is always step one. And as I said earlier, I went to the root of the problem I saw with this book, because without honesty, nothing else, the trust, the vulnerability, the transparency, nothing else can happen.
Oh my gosh. I'm a naturally enthusiastic person. You know this about me, but this really genuinely is a book that everybody needs to read. So to the viewers, if you know somebody that will interview Peter on their podcast live stream show, please make those introductions. Obviously go buy a copy of the book, but my recommendation is don't just buy a copy of the book for you and keep it to yourself, buy it for your company, right? So buy 20 copies, buy 100 copies, give it out as Christmas gifts. I loved how you said we are all locked in our own psychology. Oh my gosh, I am scared to death about where we are headed if people do not wake up.
Me too.
If people do not wake up. And it is going to take people like me and you and others who are willing to have the conversation. So I thank you for working tirelessly on this book and for spending all of the money that you've spent on this book and for working all of the hours away from your time or from your family and yourself, right? Your self-care, that's really important, just to show up every day hoping that people go out and do something with this book. And I really hope they do. And I will continue to bring up your book forevermore, because I think this is a really important topic that no one is addressing that I can see. So truly, dude, I'm celebrating you this week and congratulations on your launch.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's hard, but it's important, like you said.
So is there anything else, last call, anything else that's in your heart or mind to share that we didn't get to address today?
Sure. Yeah. So I set up a free 21 question honesty quiz on my website, honest2greatness.com. If you take the quiz, it'll tell you which honesty profile you fit into. And then I email you a video showing you hey, here are habits and trends of, where your dial may be pointing. And what's funny is I get some emails that are like, oh, Peter, wow, this was so enlightening. I'm so glad. And I get others that are like, you said I wasn't all that honest. And I think I'm honest. And that, what's funny is what I find, the people, it's like self-awareness, right? The people who think they're the most self-aware and the most honest are always the least self-aware. and least honest. But,
Oh, wow.
if you're honest enough to know, then yeah, go take that free 21 question quiz, and you can send me angry emails. I got a thick skin. It's all good.
Oh my gosh. That's okay. We're going to do that. That sounds amazing. Peter, thank you. Thanks for your time. Thanks
My
for coming
pleasure.
on. And anything else that we can do, just let us know.
I appreciate that, Amber. Thanks for being honest.
Thanks everybody for watching. We are back tomorrow with Lee Hayes. We're going to talk, if you're a speaker and you want to know how to get more speaking gigs and you want to raise your speaking fee, come back on the NGNG channel tomorrow. We're going to be featuring her. And then later today, I am live with Isaac Stegman and Mike Michalowicz on the Fix This Next live show as well. But I have a feeling like this was so amazing. Highlight of my week already. I think it's just going to continue forward. So thanks, Peter. We'll see you soon.